go out for coffee later. Anyway, I think there's a few others on the list that may come in after the class gets started. This is Parky Thompson, and he'll give you his resume here in a moment, but he comes highly recommended, and I believe that's be a good help for you. As I mentioned this morning, we will be recording these sessions, and they'll be on our YouTube channel or on our website. So if you want to go back and review what's happening, you can do that. If you happen to miss a class, as long as you pay the extra $50 fee, you can go watch, right? It's $50 if you miss, isn't that right? Yeah, and you can go watch that. And we'll leave those up until the session's over, the 12 weeks are over, 11 weeks are over, and then we'll take them down. So the only other thing you need to know about is what he's doing for us is normally much more expensive than what he's charging us. He gave us a really good price because we're a church. One of the agreements that we made in that was that we'll help him with his travel expenses. So there's an offering plate right here. If you don't mind, weekly, just drop a few dollars in there. All we're trying to do is put gas in his car so he can get to and from, if he can find the gas station that's got gas, right? But please help out with that. And just keep in mind, you're getting this thing for about a half of the price of what you normally would. And Parker, you come ahead. And I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you all. You guys can hear me, right? Okay, good. And we talked about being up on the platform today. We got this little clicker thing that just doesn't want to cooperate with you so far away. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here in Jackson County, right? Come on. Turn on. What about now? There we go. Okay. All right. I said, can we hear? I looked at you all to see if you're here. I didn't look back there. But anyways, I appreciate the opportunity to be here in Jackson County, right? That's where I'm at, correct? I know things just change all over the place. And I was telling your pastor that I put in the GPS to come to this address, and as I got close, it said, you're going to have to park your car and walk. I'm like, now wait a minute, I know I'm in the country, but my goodness, I didn't know I was going to have to park the car and walk. At least I pack light to be able to do that. But it actually took me on up around the corner. He explained to me your additional property, 30 acres that you have down the road, or I guess adjacent to here. And you've got a beautiful facility here. This is beautiful. And on top of that, the area is beautiful. I went on down to the end of the road. There's a big horse farm down there and stuff. I'm glad I didn't bring my wife. She'd want to move out here. And I would too, to be honest with you. It's beautiful out here. But I do thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. As I said, my name is Parky Thompson. There's my information up there. If you do Facebook or Twitter, email, internet, there's all my information and my office phone number. If you'd like to give me a call, you got a question or something, we'll do anything we can to help you to get a hold of your finances and move forward. I'm glad to see that we've got young people, a little bit older people, middle-aged people, and some older folks like me in here tonight. Because money affects all of us in one way or the other. Pastor and I were talking about, joking about the love offering for the fuel and stuff, and I said, yeah, that'd be great if you can find gas. How many of you have been having trouble finding gas here? And your government's telling you everything's good, everything's no inflation, nothing like that. There it is, that switch. I am a financial coach. I've been dealing with people and money for about 16 years now. Been in business for about 15 years and been doing this full-time. October will make 11 years that I've been a financial coach. My office, the big Financial Focus headquarters, which just has me, is in downtown Cumming. If you've ever been to Cumming, Georgia, the big metropolis of Cumming, Georgia, and literally, Cumming, Forsyth County, when we moved here 25 years ago, was just about like what I drove around here in the last few minutes. And truthfully, it's changed immensely. And we miss this. I'm an old country boy at heart and was thinking this morning that back when I was a teenager, back in 1974, 1975, I used to spend my summers on the farm with my grandfather, which is reminiscing a little bit about that. I miss those days, and so I'm kind of reminiscing as I'm out here as well. But I've been a financial coach now full-time for 11 years this coming October. I'm certified with Dave Ramsey. If you'll notice there, I'm the good-looking one that has hair, all right? And taken a few pounds ago as well. I work with clients all over the country, primarily here in Georgia. That's where I started out. But how many of you ever heard of a guy named Charles Stanley? Charles Stanley and had In Touch Ministries, their church there, In Touch Ministries, owned the FamilyNet network, which was a TV network. and it was broadcast across North America, including United States and Canada, and Sirius Radio. And I was the money coach on there on the Mornings with Lori and Larry show for a couple of years back in 2006, 7, 8, 9, something along that line there. So I've got clients all over the country as well. Still do some radio stuff with Intentional Living with Dr. Randy Carlson out of Tucson, Arizona. So you might had a guy send me an email about a year ago, said, I was driving through St. Louis and I heard this voice and thought, that was your voice. And sure enough, it was me doing a little 1-minute thing with Dr. Carlson, being intentional with your money. That's what I try to do, is help people be intentional. Wherever you may be in life, with money, with a family, whatever the case may be, how do we become intentional? And as your pastor mentioned, we're going to be doing this for the next several weeks at this particular time. And he mentioned Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey. Anybody ever been through FPU? Financial Peace University is a great program. It's helped millions of people. And I occasionally will teach or lead a class on that as well. It's a DVD-based thing they're doing now through the internet where you can watch it on TV, and we have a class session on Zoom and so forth. I haven't hosted one in about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, but I probably won't do one again this year. We'll do it again next winter as well. It just makes it easier in the wintertime when the nights are dark and be able to do that. You're not outside doing something. But enjoy helping people wherever they may be. That also says that I work in Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio. I have clients all over the country. I actually have 2 outside of the country right now, one who's serving in the military. I won't tell you where for confidentiality, but helping people as well wherever they may be, again, location and wherever they may be in life as well. There's my family. That was taken a couple of years ago, and the spotlight there is on that grandbaby, Chandler. I think that was her first birthday party, if I'm not mistaken, with the balloon, but that's all of us there. We had a picture taken at Christmas time, but that one on your left all the way to the end wasn't there. He couldn't make it. So I don't put that one up there because it shows like we got rid of him, and we really didn't. He lives down the road here in Athens. If you ever get over to Athens, he lives and works there, goes to, starting UGA, the Terry Business School, does that sound right? Yeah. He starts there this summer. He's just graduated from North Georgia College. So he was going to Athens to go to North Georgia College. North Georgia College is Dahlonega. What are you going to Athens for? But anyways, he did that and he graduated with an associate degree and he's going on to UGA. I want to talk to you tonight, starting off with some things that are personal when you look at this. We're not going to be taking a lot of notes tonight. Next week we'll get into some note taking. We'll get into some practice things. We're going to get into some more serious stuff when it comes to managing your money. But I want to give you a highlight thing of where we get into some stuff through the whole course. But tonight we're going to get into some personal stuff when you look at that. First thing I want to talk to you about tonight is who's going to learn from this? Who's going to benefit? Who's this for? It's for you. And it's for me. We're going to talk about the why. Why do we need to do this? And this is over the next several weeks that we're going to do this. Not all this tonight, all right? We're also going to talk about the what. What are we doing? When it comes to money, what are we doing? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? What do we need to take away from? Then also we've got to talk about the how, the application, because we can learn all that stuff, but if we don't learn how to apply it, it really does no good. And I think that's what happens when I realize that when I'm working with people in these situations here, in these, if you call them seminars, you can call them workshops, you can call them classes, whatever you want to call them. Unless we do the stuff that we need to do, we really don't learn anything. We take from here, we take some notes, we may say that we're going to do this stuff, but until we apply it, it doesn't really work. In my office, when I'm working with clients, one of the biggest things that I help people with is accountability. If we stay accountable, we'll do some things. We'll make some things happen. Several months ago, about 15 months, 16 months ago now, I was diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Didn't really know what that was, but I lost about 40 pounds. And the way I did that is I became accountable. I told my wife, you know what, I'm not going to eat anything that has any added sugar in it. I'm going to start walking. I'm not really going to work out. I'm going to walk, do some stuff. And by sharing that and her challenging me and so forth, it made me more accountable to make sure I was doing the things that I should. Also helped her prepare things that I could eat and that I couldn't eat to help me do the things that I needed to do. Accountability is huge. And then the when. When do we need to be doing this? Well, clearly we need to be doing it now. Anybody been watching what's going on in the economy? It's not a pretty picture right now. I don't care what the news people tell you. I don't care what our government leaders say. And I'm not a Republican, Democrat, Independent. Doesn't matter. I'm not trying to split hairs here. What I'm simply saying is it's not a pretty economy right now, as much as they want to tell you that it is. And some of us are a little bit older. We've seen some things like this in the past. It's not real pretty. It's important that you're prepared. It's important that you're prepared all the time. It's more important that you're prepared right now as well. I want to talk to you about something tonight. Time. Time. Do you realize that time is one commodity, pretty much, that we can't replace? You know them. I've known them. I've had met people. I've had them in my office. I've had them family members, husbands who've replaced wives, wives who've replaced husbands. Unfortunately, I've had parents, not mine, thank the good Lord, but parents who've walked out on their family, their kids. No relationship with them whatsoever. They've replaced their kids, go off and start another life somewhere else. And they think that they can replace. We can replace money. You can have a lot of money, and you can lose it, and you can gain it back again, all right? With the help of the Lord, you can gain a lot of money back. But the truth is, there's one thing that we can never replace. Time. When she's gone, she's gone. That second we just had a second ago, gone. Can't replace it. 2.5 years ago, my dad was in hospice in Maysville, Kentucky. And my dad was the greatest Christian I ever known. The greatest Christian, most godly man that I ever knew. And I say he's the greatest godly man, the most godly man that I ever knew, simply for this reason. I knew him from what people saw, and I knew him from what people didn't see. I knew his testimony. I knew his actions. I knew his love for people. And he loved us as a family, but he was more intent on leading others to Christ than he was making sure that our family was taken care of. Now, he took care of his family, don't get me wrong, but it was more important to him to share the gospel with others. And he'd do anything for anybody. And about 6 years ago, and time doesn't serve me right here, but about 6 years ago, about this time of year, he was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And if you knew my dad, the one thing about the Lou Gehrig's disease was it took him away from the ability to do something for somebody. My father-in-law passed away very suddenly 3.5 years ago, Thanksgiving weekend. I happened to be with him the day before. They both lived in Kentucky. We were there, and I told my father-in-law, we were there together, and he had needed some oxygen. I was going to go downstairs to get it. And he said, "No, you don't need to go do it. I'll do it." No, we're battering back and forth. I said, "Ed, you know what your problem is?" He said, "What?" I said, "You're just like my dad. You want to do everything for everybody else, but you don't want anybody to do anything for you." He said, "Yeah, I guess you're right." We went back to my parents, and unfortunately, Ed, my father-in-law, passed away that weekend. But 2.5 years ago, my dad now is in hospice. And as we were in hospice that day, and I was sitting there thinking about what's going on, the fact that my dad's going home, where he wanted to go. He's going home here in a matter of minutes or hours. It may be days, hopefully not, because he wants to go. I got to thinking, my dad is 77 years old. And by the way, he passed away on October 7th at 7:07 p.m. at 77 years old. Now, you know what that number 7 is in the Bible, completion. And I'm sitting there thinking, my dad's 77 years old. I'm 56 at the time. In 20 years, I'm him. I hope not in the same state, but I'm him. And I know for a fact how fast the last 20 years have flown by. We moved to Georgia 25 years ago. I was just sharing with your pastor, we just stepped out on faith. We sold our house 2 weeks ago. Oh, trusting the Lord to give us something else. My wife and I are getting ready to find out how much we really love each other. We're going to a 1-bedroom apartment, short term. Now, my short term is until we find a house. Her short term may be as long as she can handle me. I don't know what that means, all right? But pray for us if you would. Pray that the Lord provide a place for us, because it's a hot market when you're selling, and it's not too hot when you're buying right now. But the truth is, 25 years ago, I remember that. And I'm sitting in that hospice room thinking, 20 years from now, I'm my dad's age. My dad was a very outgoing, very vibrant person, but you can see those last few years really start to slow down. And I'm thinking, boy, what do the next 20 years hold? What time do I have left? What time do you have left? We've come through a lot in the last 15, 16 months, have we? 16 months ago, you didn't even know that word coronavirus, did you? You didn't know COVID-19. None of us did. None of us had well, I mean, we did. They were talking about it over in China, but it's not going to get here. Then it was that one Thursday about the middle of March when Donald Trump hit the podium and said, we're going to shut this thing down for the next 15 days. I think he meant to say 15 months, didn't he? But it was 15 days, and everybody, and the economy, for all intents and purposes, came to a screeching halt. It was about this time last year when I started hearing from people through texts and phone calls and emails saying, now I know what you mean by an emergency fund. Because they say, well, you know what kind of emergency fund do I need? Well, you need something to be prepared when something happens that you don't know is coming. And now they saw it. But coronavirus, so many people were afraid they were going to get that and they were going to die from it. Yet the numbers show that's just not the case. Now, I told people, and I was concerned, I really was. And I actually told somebody at church this morning, I teach a Sunday school class. We go to Greater Heights Baptist Church in Cumming. And I was sharing with somebody after class this morning that December of 2019, I guess it was now. Time's flying. That 20 years, down to 18 now. That 20 years, it's going by quickly. But in December, I was diagnosed with diabetes. And as a change, I lost the weight and started getting more active and doing some things. And I told my wife, it was just about a year ago, going to bed one night, I'm so glad the doctor told me that when he did, to allow me to make some changes before this coronavirus came in. Because I was one of those classes of people who could be drastically affected by it. But here's what I also said. My Bible tells me to live by faith and not in a state of fear. Right? And everybody's scared to death. And I tried telling people this. It's not that I'm going to test that and not saying that I'm bigger and better than the COVID-19 virus or the flu or the cold or anything else. I'm not. But I was about 2 or 3 years old. I don't even know exactly when, but I found out that I was born on September the 23rd, 1962. I didn't even know when I was going to be born. Did you? Did you? No. None of us do. My mom didn't even know, and she's carrying me. She didn't even know when I was going to be born. Nor do I know the day or the way that I'm leaving here. But God does, and He will control that. And it could be COVID, and it could be a car accident, and it could be a heart attack, and it could be cancer. It could be any number of things. The point of it is, none of us are guaranteed. But the one thing that we do have right now, right this minute, right this second, is time. And that time also, in putting it in perspective, can affect us financially. And when I say that, let me ask you this. What kind of steward are you with the resources that God has given you? See, the book of James, chapter 4, in verse 14. Anybody familiar with that verse? What's it call our life? A vapor. A vapor. And if you look at that word in the book of James and you drill down a little bit and you start to research it, that word's talking about a breath. Now, I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. Don't hold that against me, but I'm a northerner, all right? But I'm a transplant, to be honest with you. I like it down here. Still not as warm as I'd like it year-round, but it gets cold up there. And it still gets cold here, just not the same kind of cold, not as long, okay? But how many have ever walked out, primarily in the morning, you've been in that nice warm bed, and you get up, and you go outside, it's cold, and you breathe in, there's your breath. Just like that guy there. How long does it last? It's gone. It's gone, isn't it? You can't even get a good look. I'm surprised you got a picture like that. That's one of them fancy cameras.
I'm from Ohio, too.
Are you really? From where?
Zanesville.
Zanesville, over on that east side.
Yeah, southeast of Columbus.
So, yeah, absolutely. I got mad there one night in the middle of the night. I'll tell you about that after we're done here. McDonald's tried to close down a mom and drive-through. All right, I'll share that with you. I never will forget Zanesville, as a matter of fact. But us Buckeyes, we got to stick together, all right? And I appreciate you speaking up. I meant to say that. Let's make this an informative class, all right? Let's be transparent. I'm going to be transparent with you tonight on some stuff as well, me personally. But you look at that, and you look at that breath. It's gone. It's gone. What are we doing with what we have? So the question I've had for you tonight, and it deals around finances. It's a rhetorical question. But what is your life? What is your life? When it comes to money, finances, being a steward, what is your life? If we took out a piece of paper tonight, and I'm not asking you to do this, but if you did, and you began to write down all the things that you own, what would you have on that list? Somebody share something that would be on your list if you were writing it right now. The things that you own. Car. What kind of car? Who said that? Honda. Okay. You married, right? Yeah, figured Honda. You'd have a Camaro if you weren't married, right? Okay. Big stomping guy like you? Yeah, you would. All right. Honda. What else would be on there? Car. Who said house? A couple houses. What else? Pictures. Who said that? Wow. You're looking at memories. Good. What else? Tools. You got a good list here. What else? Guitars. Now, what kind of guitar? Oh, you're not married, are you? Yeah. How many ever heard of Jimmy Fortune? Tenor singer, used to sing with the Statler Brothers. And I got to meet him about a year ago. In fact, I got to meet him the weekend before everything shut down. I got to spend some time with his wife, and Jimmy was going to sign my Takamine guitar, so I had it there with me. We were up in LJ, and I asked his wife, I said, I brought my tack here, so he'll sign that because I know he likes tack. She said, honey, he likes any guitar. He's always wanting to buy a guitar, always wanted. And she said, I asked him, why do you need another guitar? He said, I'm a professional, I got to have a guitar. She said, but you only play one at a time, right? And yeah, I bought one yesterday. I'll talk to you afterwards. And I really can't play that well. So anyways, I just like the guitars. What else would be on our list? Furniture. What? Piano. Children. Who said children? And you think you own them. Yeah, wait till you want to do something with them. Yeah, mine are grown and gone. I know that. Listen, we're going through a lot of things to say that. But you know what? I'm 58 years old. If the Lord lets me live another 4 months, I'll be 59. And it took me a long time to realize this, a long time. But you know what I own? Nothing. And you know it as well. You don't own a thing. I came through downtown Cumming on Friday, and I think the street's Ingram, but it's Ingram Funeral Home. And it wasn't the hearse, but it was a van that's got that little insignia thing on it. And I'm thinking to myself, he's either going to the hospital or hospice or somebody's home where somebody's passed away to pick them up. And I've been by there many times, probably get by there 2 or 3 times a week to see it. And I've seen hearses in there getting ready to line up. The cars are lining up to go on the funeral procession. But I have never seen a U-Haul attached to that. I've never seen a U-Haul truck behind it, or a budget truck, or whatever your company you want to talk about. Never seen it. Everything that we have, even those guitars, going to stay right here. Right here. The truth is, we don't own anything. I was talking to my Sunday school class this morning. There was a couple that sit over here, and they're big in the IT or computer world. I won't tell you what company they work for, but they're big into it, doing this stuff. And I said, when it comes to the basic foundation of a computer, you know what that is? It's the chip, the processing chip. You know what that's made out of? Silicone. You know what the silicone is? Sand. Who owns the sand? Who put the sand there? Who gave those individuals the intellectual capability to realize that sand can be put together to make a computer chip that's pretty much running our lives today? God. God owns it all. God owns it all. And the truth is, He's given us some possessions that we might be users. And until we understand that, things really don't change. And one of those things is money. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a minute. Luke chapter 16, verses 1 and 2. Who's got their Bible and can read that? Mine's on the front row there. Who's? Luke 16. And this is a Baptist church. I know everybody's got their Bible, right?
16, 1 and 2.
Yes, ma'am. Luke 16, 1 and 2. Who can read that real quick?
And he said also unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. And he called him and said unto him, how is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer steward.
Anybody ready to give an account of their stewardship? I'll tell you a little bit about myself now that I didn't tell you at the beginning with that family. 18 years ago, I was broke. I was working in the IT world, making right at 6 figures. My wife wasn't, well, my wife was working. She was working at Belk, and she was bringing her paycheck home in bags. Ladies, if you know what I mean. Boy, that got you woke up, didn't it? Yeah, ladies, it got your attention. Yeah. And truthfully, we dressed finer than we ever had because she was able to find those bargains when they went on sale to be able to do that. And it was a blessing to do that. But I was making a bunch of money. You know what we didn't have? Money. We had a bunch of debt. I had a wife, 3 kids, a mortgage, a truck payment, a van payment, a camper payment, and almost $40,000 in credit card debt, consumer loans. I used to work with a guy in Cincinnati. His name was Rick. He used to tell me all the time as a young guy, a man without a debt is a man without a future. And based upon his picture and his idea of debt, I had a very promising future because I had a bunch of debt. But it got to the point where I couldn't even sleep at night thinking about this. And it happened to be June of 2003. We were in Louisville, Kentucky, and my then 40-year-old brother-in-law is finally getting married. I think he's almost 40 at the time. Finally getting married. We were there for several days as they prepped for this thing, and I'm bored out of my mind, so I turned the TV on. There was a cable access channel. It was a simulcast of Dave Ramsey's radio program in Nashville, Tennessee. Dave wasn't anybody unless you lived in Nashville at the time. He wasn't the national prominence that he is today. But I watched this guy, and I listened to him, and I thought, he's rude to people. And he's obnoxious. He knows it all. He's actually ugly. But the truth is, he's talking to me. I'm 40 years old. And I'm broke. And I'm making a good income. And what would happen if I lost my job? And what am I teaching my kids? And all those things began to run through my mind. But I did what most people do. I let it go in this year and right back out this one. And did nothing. That was in June. And in September, things began to get a little bit worse, and a little bit worse, and a little bit worse. And finally, on November the 15th, 2003, my wife and I were camping at Lake Lanier. You ever been to Lake Lanier? It's close, right? A whole lot closer than what I thought when I drove over here, but it's close. I can take you to the camping spot that we were camping in the camper that we were making payments on, being pulled by the truck that we were making payments on, in a camping spot that we had paid for with a credit card. We sat around that campfire on that November 15th. It was a dreary day. It wasn't raining, just dreary and chilly. It was a nice day for November. And my wife and I made a decision. Enough is enough. We're going home from here, and tomorrow, Sunday, after church, we're going to get those credit cards, which happen to be our Achilles heel, and we're going to cut those things up. We're going to get on a plan. We're going to lay out some goals. We're going to get on a budget, and we're going to turn this thing around. And everything I said to my wife, she agreed to, except for the word budget. I'm not getting on any budget. I'm like, well, no, you're not, but we are, all right? We're going to tell our money what to do, and we're going to live by that. Now, truthfully, I really don't know how committed that I was, or she was, but that's what we said. Sunday, we went to church, we went home, parked the camper, got all the credit cards, and I didn't cut them up. I put them on a rubber band around them, and I set them on my desk. And they sat there. I don't know why I didn't cut them up. I can't tell you that today. But I know I didn't cut them up. The next morning, I got up and went to work, just like I was supposed to. I was there, been there about an hour, and the boss called me in his office. And when he called me in, there sat the HR director, and he said, I hate to do this 2 Mondays before Thanksgiving, but we don't need you anymore. I'm now 41 years old. I had a birthday, and for the first time in my life, I'm unemployed. And I got a wife, 3 kids, a mortgage, truck, van, camper payment, and a bunch of credit cards. What am I going to do? I will tell you right now, that wasn't the most exciting day of my life. My wife, I went home. I didn't know what to do. Didn't know how we were going to earn money. I knew I had a bunch of, what am I going to do? I remember going home, and my wife, actually, did I call my wife or she called me? I don't even remember what it was. But anyway, she said, where you at? I said, I'm at home. What are you doing home? I wasn't going to tell her until she got home. But I got to tell her now. She said, oh my gosh, I'll be right there. I said, no, you stay there and work. You stay and work. You do all you can to work. And then I sat down and watched Price is Right, and I thought, well, this isn't too bad. Then the reality hit. Something's got to change. We don't have any money coming in. And I will tell you today, honestly, November the 17th, 2003 was the greatest day in my financial life that there ever was. That was the day that woke me up and realized You got to have a plan. You got to be doing something different than what you've been doing. I truly believe that God took me and took us through that to show us that we could live differently. And He did show us. He also met every need that we had over the next 3 months. But He also was showing me that, hey, you're going to be coaching people and teaching people how to manage their finances, how to be good stewards. You need to go through something here so that you can help them do that. What qualifies for me, the stuff I'm going to share with you over the next several weeks, is I've been there, I've done that, I've made the mistakes, and I can tell you that they're not the best things to do. Let's avoid those, let's move forward. You can move forward, but let's keep moving forward in the right direction. For those of you that haven't made those mistakes, let's not do it. Let's keep moving forward. Do the right things. I went back to work in February, and over the next 26 months, on a budget, on a plan, living intentionally, and we'd been living, we'd cut to the bone. We'd been living that way since November the 15th, 17th. And we kept living that way once the income went right back to where it was at. And over the next 26 months, we paid off everybody that we owed. Truck, van, camper, credit cards, consumer loans, paid them all off. And I'll be honest with you, I'm lucky to still be married. I'm lucky that my kids still speak to me because it was tough, but we had an agenda to get it done. And I thought we can't let up. We got to keep doing this. Now, I can't teach my clients to do that, by the way, today, because they'd never come back. But we were aggressive at it. On September the 21st, 2007, 2 days before my 45th birthday, we wrote the last check for the house. We've been debt-free now for 14 years this coming September, and thankful for it. Thankful for it. The point is, I'm trying to drive home is you can do it. It's possessions, it's things. We should have never got involved in some of the stuff that we got into, but you know what? We had to have the stuff. And I believe today that if God called me home today, and I was standing before Him, He would say, prior to that day, you were not a very good steward. But after that, you've been a lot better. Have I been perfect? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We have not been perfect, nor you. But the truth is, I think I've been better than what I was in the past from that day. He got my attention. There's some other things He got my attention as well. When you look at, there we go, stewardship. When you think about stewardship, you know what stewardship comes down to? Someone, an owner, entrusts with his assets. We already said it, God owns everything. There's nothing here that we really own. God owns it. And He can take it from us, and He can give it to us. And He does with a lot of people. But we got to realize that God truly owns it all. We also know that we can't understand stewardship unless we truly know and understand ownership. Thinking that you own it isn't going to get you anywhere at all. Then lastly, this thing I got to stay. The reason I'm standing over here is to make this clicker work, and it went too fast. There we go. Got to stay close to it. How faithful are you with what God's given you? How faithful are you with what God has given you in His property? And I hear this from people all the time. Well, only if I made more money. Only if I didn't know as much. Only if I had fewer bills. Only if this had not been done to me. Oh, we get some good ones here. Only if I had more education. Only if my spouse. Oh, they get better, don't they? Yeah. Only if my children. Only if I or we knew better how to manage. I won't even say our money, but knew how to better manage ourselves. People call me all the time and ask me money questions and so forth. I said, I can be honest with you, I hate math. I despise math. I barely passed math to get out of high school and college. But here's the truth. It's our behavior. It's not the math. I met a lady on the phone in South Carolina, I think it was, and I asked her what she did for a living. She said, well, I'm a certified or clinical behavior analyst. And I said, well, so am I. I help people analyze their behavior and make the changes that they need to make financially. Here's the truth I want you to see. God owns it all. If you get nothing out of this class over the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever we're doing, God owns it all. When we go to bed tonight, I encourage you to thank Him for what He's allowed you to possess, what He's allowed you to use. For some of you, maybe a room full of guitars. For others, could be a piano, For others, it could be the pictures, the memories. And it's a number of things that He's given us and He allows us to have. And at that particular time, if you're laying in bed like I do, you thank Him for that nice warm bed and pillow and your spouse beside you, if you've got a spouse. There's a lot of things to be thankful for. We've got a lot of things that we're unthankful for. And if you look around us tonight leaving, going down the road, you can find many things. But you know what? We need to be thankful. He's looking for good stewards. Can He count on you and me? He owns it all. But the truth is, things get in the way. Things get in the way. People ask me all the time, should I refinance my house? You know, I said, well, how much is this going to cost you? Well, what do you mean cost? I'm going down from 4.5% to 2.5%. Yeah, but how much is it going to cost you in closing? I said, you know what? All those commercials that you hear on TV, if it's the latest and greatest thing and it's going to help you out financially, why are they wasting their money on it if it's not going to help them? Whether it's a refinance or whether it's a new car or whether it's a vacation or whatever it may be. You think about that. Our decisions get in the way with money. Money. Think about that. We're some blessed people, but money gets in the way. Money. Two things with money. Is it a tool or is it a hindrance? Last year, who said both? You're exactly right. This time last year, how many of you were spending some time at home? Yeah, I was. I mean, I went from clients who didn't want to meet on Zoom till now I can't get rid of them. Everybody wants to do Zoom. I'm opening my office again June 1st. Well, I don't know if I want to go. I'll do the Zoom stuff. And I'm perfectly fine with that, to do that. I've been doing it since I did the TV stuff, so I'm good with it. But everybody wanted to do it. But I'm at home more then. And there was this stack of bricks underneath my deck that, Lord knows I'm telling you the truth, they've been there for at least 10 years, maybe 12. And it's things my wife had around the flower beds, you know, and we decided we would pull those up because she didn't want those anymore. And we put them back here. And I remember we cut some trees down 4 years ago. We moved them from the driveway over there. So it's been at least 4 years it's been under the deck. And I'm like, I'm going to build that little 10-foot walkway that I've been saying I'm going to do for 12 years. And I did. And I got to thinking about this yesterday. I spoke yesterday over at another church in Newton County. And I was thinking as I was looking at my deck and looking at that brick thing, I said, you know what, those bricks there, they're nice. Bricks can actually build a nice house, nice facade on a house. They can build a nice walkway. You ever seen banks that are in brick? You know, they're four-sided. Our houses are only one-sided brick, but those banks are four. They got the money. They got money from you. Think about that. But as you look at that, and you look at that brick, you know what? If somebody would have come up when I was working on it, because it was hot, and I was sweaty, and I was frustrated trying to get this thing level, if they'd have said something, I used that brick, I might have used it on them. That brick can make something good, but it can also hurt somebody, maim somebody, kill somebody. But it's still a brick. It's what we do with it. Money is a tool. What do we do with it? Is it truly a tool, or do we allow it to be a hindrance? 25 years ago, I shared that with you. 25 years ago, right now, we were in the process of moving from Louisville, Kentucky to Cumming, Georgia. And I worked for General Electric in Cincinnati. They had just transferred me to Louisville, Kentucky. I was there 9 months before they transferred me to Atlanta. Right? And so my wife had just got in. We just got the boxes unpacked, and they said, you know, we're not going to have it. You can move on to Atlanta to be able to. So I came to Atlanta in March of that year, and she stayed back there with our 3 kids, the youngest one who was 3 months old. And fortunately, her family lived in Louisville, so that it was a big help there as well. But I'll just be flat out honest with you. I'm a baby when it comes to my family. I love to travel. I used to travel with John. I love to travel Monday through Tuesday, and then I wanted to go home to my family. And so it got to be real rough down here when it got to be April, May, June. And my family's in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm in Atlanta. I'm living with my aunt over in Lawrenceville. And I began to pray, Lord, would you show us some way to where we could find a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment here somewhere to where my family could come in together and we could move a little bit of furniture. I'll pack all of us in 1 bedroom if you need to until that house sells so we can be together. I began to pray that. Lord, would you show me? I went back to Louisville one weekend. I'd be down here 2 or 3 weeks and I'd go back for 2 or 3 days. And I was in there and my wife and kids were watching Dr. Quinn. Anybody ever watch that show? I'm going to be honest, I hated that show. So I did. And if you like it, I apologize, but I just didn't like it, all right? anyways, they're watching this, you know, and I went in this room. We'd just finished the basement. Been there 9 months, I'd finished the basement, the house was, but I went into our computer with Quicken. This was before I was a finance guy, but everything that we had financially was on Quicken. And I began to look at that, and I wanted the Lord to show me, where could we cut back in our finances? Keep in mind, we're broke now. It's 25 years ago. I wasn't a finance guy. Where can we cut back in our money to free up enough money that we could have essentially a house and an apartment and be together in Georgia? And I'm scrolling down through that, and something I saw there was a huge check that General Electric had given me back in late February, early March, as a relocation check. They dropped a lump sum of money on me. It was like winning the lottery, all right? And so we took that check and we moved it over to the savings account so that we could protect that, not spend it on anything, so that we'd have it when we relocated. And the more I looked at that, the more I saw we never tithed on that. We never tithed on that. And I'm like, Lord, is that it? Are you getting my attention to do that? And so I shut the computer down. I walked back out to that dumb show. And my wife, she said, is something wrong? So I guess I had it on my face. She said, is something wrong? I said, no, I'm just thinking. I'm all right. And so we watched that, went to bed. I didn't sleep well that night. I remember this just like it was yesterday. We got up the next morning, went to church. Small church. I mean, the church might have been as big as this section right here. I remember the pastor preached a message. I can't tell you where his text was, but I can tell you what the title was. There's no such thing as coincidence. That was the title of his message. Never will forget it. I'm like, wow, okay. So I left there, that's still heavy on my heart and my mind, and we went home, and I don't know, the afternoon. We went back to service that night, and he preached a message that we've all heard, giving of your time, your tithe, and your talent. And I'm like, that's all I need. We went home, my wife's making dinner. I said, Lisa, where's the checkbook at? And so I was at the little island in the kitchen while she's making whatever she's making. I said, here's what I want you to do. I'm leaving for Atlanta the next morning. I wrote a check out there for the tithe. I said, when you go to church Wednesday night, I want you to turn this in and get this out of our hands. She said, well, what are you talking about? And I explained to her, and she said, do you really think that? I said, no, I know it now. I know it. She said, well, they don't even take an offering on Wednesday night. The crowd's so low, they don't even take an offering. I said, I don't care. You get it out of our hands, you get it into somebody else's hands. So I left for Atlanta. Wednesday night, I was staying with my aunt in Lawrenceville, and they were gone. My aunt and nieces, they were gone, and the phone rang. I had to be at work at 4 o'clock, so I'd go to bed at 8 or 8:30, and the phone rang. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I run downstairs and get the phone. Because back in those days, we had a phone that plugged into the wall, some of you young people. We had a phone that plugged into the wall and had a receiver. Anybody ever seen one? You probably seen Smithsonian Institution. Have you ever been there? You can look it up on the internet. We used to have things like that, all right? Not one you carried in your pocket. So I had to run down there to answer that phone. It was my wife. And when I heard her voice, I said, did you turn that check in? She said, yes, I turned that check in. Pretty much in that tone. And she said, I've got good news and bad news. All right, so let me play the psychology thing. Let me take the bad news first, because typically the good news overweighs the bad news. You know, you cover that up. I said, well, what's the bad news? And she said, well, when I was coming in from church, the kids had left the garden hose out and that little handle thing of it. She said, I ran over it and broke that. I'm like, well, did you turn the water off? And she's, yeah, so it's fine. We'll replace that. It's a few bucks, not a big deal. We'll be all right. I said, what's the good news? She said, I had no idea when I went to church tonight. She said, but when I pulled back in, our realtor's name was Mark. Mark's mother was coming out of our house with a couple. And she said, the couple got in their car. She said, I stopped in the driveway. I didn't know whether I should wait or whatever. She said, Mark's mom came over to the van, and she said, I didn't have a chance to call you. She said, but this couple wanted to see your house. Said, this man looked at your house back in March, and he loved your house. And they're moving down from Chicago, and this was the first opportunity his wife's been here to be able to look at it. They love your house. Expect an offer by the weekend. Remember that message? There's no such thing as coincidence. Yeah. See, money had become a hindrance. I don't think I was doing anything wrong, but I didn't do it right, because I should have done it first, and bringing back that tithe of what he had blessed us with. But we didn't. We didn't. I could take you through the rest of the story. We did. We got an offer on Friday. And the issue with the offer was they weren't going to be able to close until mid-October. the house that we wanted to put a contract on and coming, the one that we just sold 2 weeks ago, wasn't going to be ready till the end of October. You know, it's amazing how God's plan just works out here. And it's amazing if we just get out of the way and let him work, what he can do in our lives. And that's what he's doing. He's looking for good stewards. He's looking for somebody who's going to do that. See, there's two myths with money. Again, you've got that thing where money's a tool or it's a hindrance. But there's two myths. Somebody's missing. I hope my wife hadn't called in and said, "Where are you at?" With the sheriff's department. My name comes up there, let me know. I'll call her real quick. Two myths with money. That money is evil and that money is always good. Money's not evil. Money's not evil. Wealth is not evil. In my class this morning, we were talking about a guy, we wrapped up about the longest series of lessons I ever done. It was a 13-week lesson that we've done over the last 15 months because of COVID on a guy named Joseph. Anybody know Joseph back there in Genesis? And Joseph's dad, granddad, great-granddad, some wealthy people. Job, very wealthy, and was even more wealthy at the end. Some others as well. David, Solomon, a lot of wealthy people in the Bible. There's nothing wrong with being wealthy. Money is not evil, but it's not always good. It got me, it was a hindrance when you look at that. In the New Testament, what does it tell us? It's for the love of money. It doesn't say money, it's for the love of money is the issue. And so many today are in that love of money thing. That's what gets us in trouble. Money's just a medium of exchange. Back in the old days, gold, silver, animals, crops, all that good stuff. Today it's paper. Paper. Our economic system in the United States of America is based on paper. Do you know what a hot commodity was this time last year? Toilet paper. All right? Think about it. It'd probably been cheaper to use a dollar bill than to buy that toilet paper last year. All right? Yeah. Crazy. Paper. Money's a tool. Money's a tool. But we need to learn to use money and not to be controlled by money, not to serve money. I'm going to get a longer thing, so we've got that next week, and I can stand up there in front of everybody to be able to do that. Luke chapter 16, verse 13, simply says this: no one can serve two masters. Anybody in here ever worked for two bosses? Where I spoke last night, my wife's old boss was speaking behind me, and we're friends. I didn't want to bring this up, but have you ever worked for two bosses and try to make both of them? Man, there's a reason why we don't have two wives and two husbands. There's a reason for that, absolutely. I can't do never mind, I'm not going to. She may watch this on a recording. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. My wife's in a new job. She actually started, she was our church secretary for 11 years, and she left there February the 28th last year. Started the new job on March the 1st, and everything shut down on March 13th. Yeah, talk about some praying. But literally today, there's no org chart where she works. And she's got about 4 different bosses. Picture that. You can't serve the world and God. You can't do it. It will drive you crazy trying to do that. Materialism. Anybody ever get caught up in materialism? We all do. It's a tendency to consider the material possessions and physical comfort more important than spiritual values. A lot of times materialism will get in front of our walk, and it will get us out of the walk that we need to have with God. I'm speeding up here so I don't want your pastor to come in and tell me I'm running over, all right? I think we've got an hour, right? There's a difference between wanting and needing. Would you agree with me? All right? And the truth is, it's a huge difference. Now, I will tell this, and I tell this to my Sunday school class. I tell it just about everywhere I speak. And I don't mean to covet because I'm not coveting, but do you know how good I would look in a Lexus LS 500 car? I mean, look, I told my wife, I said, do you know how good you would look riding in that? Not driving it, riding in that car with me, all right? Back when there was the LS 460, they're on Model 2 head now with that, but when it was the LS 460, do you realize that those cars, they said that you could pull up to parallel park, I guess because nobody could ever do it in their driver exam, but you could pull up and parallel park by pull that car right up by the one that you want to park behind, push a button, and that car will back itself in there and do that. Can you tell me who in their right mind would spend $80,000 on a car to push that button to see if it even worked? Yeah. Why would you do that? Now, here's the truth. I do like those cars. One of my clients who had just come through bankruptcy, she told me, she said, whatever you do, don't sit in one. She lost it in bankruptcy. Don't sit in one. Don't sit in one. I thought, well, I won't do that. But the truth is, what I need is reliable transportation that gets me from point A to point B, and hopefully from B back to A, assuming A is home, right? Because that's where I want to go. That's all we need. I drive a 2009 Ford Ranger pickup truck. And I've got friends who've got some nice, pretty pickup trucks. You sit in them, oh, it's like, how in the world could you haul manure in something like this? See, I'm an old country boy at heart. How would you be able to scratch it up, something like this? They got all these bells and whistles. It's nice. I wouldn't mind it. Listen, if somebody wants to give me one of those, I'll drive it home. I'm not complaining. But you know what I need? We need transportation. There's typically, and I want to be honest here. I want to say I do it every day. I don't. But there's probably not a week that goes by that I don't thank God for my Ford Ranger. 2009, getting ready to turn 200,000 miles. I just love that truck. That's all I need. And I hope it lasts another 200,000 miles. My wife doesn't like my truck. She said it hurts her back when she drives it. Guess what? She don't have to drive it that much, right? I love it. What I need is transportation. I don't need the LS. When you think about it, I don't, and I know I'm picking on you with the guitars because we've got something in common. I've got them as well, all right? The truth, I don't need a bunch of guitars. We can only play one at a time, but I enjoy them. I do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with those things, but we've got to really realize what's a want and what is truly a need. Philippians chapter 4, verse 11, the Apostle Paul is writing there. What's that one word that he uses in there? Oh, you guys said that very low. Content. All right? Because none of us want to be content, do we? And the world doesn't want us to be content. The word contentment, it's a tough one to swallow. Paul said, I've learned in both states, when I've got it, when I don't, to be content. And God wants us to be content in that. But the truth is we need it. We're going to convince ourselves that we needed it. Anybody get a stimulus check over the last year? Anybody still aggravated you haven't got it? We did. We got ours. That first one that was coming out, what was that $1,200 per person, I think? Do you know how many times I spent that $1,200 in my mind? And I didn't even know when I was going to get it. They didn't even have my bank account. They didn't know where they're going to send it to. All right? And I really, honestly, I don't agree with them sending it, all right? From a financial perspective and the way they did it, and all, I don't even agree with it. But hey, it's coming to me. I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. I spent that thing 7 ways a Sunday. And we do it all the time. We do it all the time because we need it. We need it. We are the most marketed to people in the history of this world. If you don't believe me, you go back and look at the Super Bowl ads and what those cost during the Super Bowl. 30-second, $5 million. They're going to spend $5 million for 30 seconds. And ads don't work? Yeah, okay. Got some farmland I'd like to sell you. Yeah, down along the Gulf of Mexico. Come on now, there we go. It's worse today. Newspapers, magazines, TVs, we all had it. I mean, we are old enough to realize how they advertise and how they sell this stuff to us. Over the last couple of months, my mom has got a bad shoulder. She's potentially looking at a shoulder replacement, 78 years old, and she needed a massager. So she picked it out on Amazon. I ordered, had it shipped to her, went to her. She was in Florida at the time. It went to her. She got back to her house in Kentucky, and it didn't work. Oh, no big deal, Mom. We'll just send it in and get you another one. We did, sent in, boom. It lasted about 2 weeks and stopped working. I said, Mom, we're not going to do this again. We're going to send that back, get a full refund. I want you to go out there again and find one that you want that works. I'll order that and send it to you. So she did last Monday. She sent me a text just from Amazon. Here's the link to that. And I clicked on that and ordered it to be sent to her in Kentucky. Now my Facebook, my internet, all this other stuff is talking about massager. I don't even want a massager, okay? It's just a handheld massage. It was a thing for my mom, but yet it picked that up and it's going to sell me this thing, all right? My wife and I have been looking at houses and stuff, and every other thing on Facebook is a house sale, and it's already under contract. We are the most marketed to people in the history of the world. It's just worse today. It's worse today. Everybody wants your dollar. They want you to take your attention off what's important. They don't care about you being a good steward. And I will tell you, they don't really care if you have money to put food on the table. All right? I've been doing this long enough to realize that. They don't. The truth is, we need to be smarter than that. We need to be the good stewards that God expects us to be. We are consumers. Randy Alcorn had this statement in one of his books, said, products are marketed to consumers without regard for the fact that they may become addicted, depressed, obese, or even diseased, taking years off their life as a result of consuming those products. Folks, I've learned over the last 15, 16 months that sugar is not good for you. I've learned some other things, but yet we consume them. We do that. We listen to all this stuff, the advertisers and all this stuff, but are we truly, and I'm not saying food's wrong, but I'm simply saying, are we being good stewards with what God has given us? Randy Alcorn also goes on to say this: materialism drives not just the bad apples of society, it drives the best and the brightest. From those that finest schools and homes, those who become government, business leaders, physicians, and attorneys. And here's what I'm sad to report. It also affects Christians in the church. Materialism. Remember, the physical comfort, the things that we want that replaces the spiritual value. Materialism. It's easy to get caught up in our society, in our world. We were talking last night. Most of the world today lives on a daily salary of about $5 to $10 a day. What do you make a day? They're making it. The old saying, he who dies with the most toys still dies, and he leaves them to somebody else. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We just leave them to somebody else. And typically, they're fighting over them. Do you know how many families I've seen split? Even part of my own family. Split over money. Not my immediate family, thank the good Lord. But families split over property and money. Life's too short. Remember that vapor we saw the picture of? Life's too short to be fighting over this stuff. Luke chapter 12 and verse 15. Again, I want you to read that as well. There's some dangers in materialism. I'm going to speed through this real quick as you look at this. And by the way, these are my slides. If you'd like a copy of these, I can get those to you. Materialism can and will hinder or destroy our spiritual lives. I think we've talked about that here tonight as well. Secondly, here this evening, it brings unhappiness and anxiety. I've got some friends who use credit cards to their benefit. They're getting points, they're getting airline miles, all that stuff. It's hard for me to argue with them because they're paying it off every month. They don't know some of the other things going on. It's hard for me to argue with them. But what they don't see in my office are people in my office talking about suicide, marriages falling apart, marriages that have fallen apart, relationships that are broken, all because of money. And the fact that we haven't been managing like we should, like God expects us to do. It'll spawn independence and self-sufficiency, taking our eye again off God and the blessor, who is a blessing to us, so that we might be blessing to somebody else. It leads to pride and elitism. My grandpa used to say we get too big for our britches. We do. We do. We'll talk more about this over the next several weeks as well, and hopefully able to click a little bit better. I don't want you leaving here tonight and tell you there's anything wrong with money, because there's not. If you look at that, there's nothing wrong with a Christian making and being worth millions of dollars. Your pastor walked in, he's hoping some of those people will come join the church. And bring a lot of people with him and develop his 30 acres, right? You know what? There'd be nothing wrong with that. Because when God blesses, he expects us to use that the right way. So long as we've got the right heart for it, that's what we should be doing, the right thing. We should be a generous and willing vessel. There's some people to talk about even today. Truett Cathy. There's no telling what Truett Cathy and his family are actually worth today. And you can sit here and say he did it on the chicken sandwich. But I don't believe it. I believe Truett Cathy and his family are wealthy in the sense that they're wealthy because they honored God with it, even from the mission statement when you go in their door. They want to honor God with that money. And they still are. They're doing that. There's a gentleman in Ohio. My friend mentioned it last night. Brought it back to my memory. A guy named Stanley Tam. I encourage you to look up Stanley Tam on the internet. Stanley Tam, I found out last night, is 106 years old. Back in the 50s when he started his plastics company, he worked with his attorneys to incorporate his business to simply show that God owns his business. He doesn't own it. God owns it. And God has blessed him immensely. I don't know how many millions of dollars that he's invested in missions around the world over the years that God's allowed him to have this company, because his focus was in the right area. He was being the steward that God expects him to be. And you know what? That could be for preventing you and I from having what he wants us to have, to be able to use what we've got. I may be looking at some millionaires here. Maybe now. You're shaking your head no, all right? Maybe, but maybe in the future. I want you to be prepared now. If that's the case, be what God wants you to be with that. Avoid the temptations that are faced by most wealthy people. It's amazing.
My car's in 04.
What's that?
My car's in 04.
04, well, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
7,000 miles on it.
Just getting broke in. And you're not going to tell me the truth, but I know what it's like to lay in bed at night at 2 minutes before 11, and Channel 2 comes on and draws those lottery numbers. Your mind wanders. Don't you lie. Don't you lie. It wanders.
Don't even have a ticket.
Well, that's just my wife. I said, when I win that, Lisa, she said, well, when you do, but you typically need to play to get a ticket to be able to do that. She kind of cuts me off at the knees, But I've always said, if I ever win that, I'm going to buy me about 200 acres. And I'm going to build me a big house, one of them wraparound porches. Got several of them rocking chairs on there. I'm going to have me a field of black Angus cattle over here, a field of red, white-faced cattle over here, a field of horses. I'm going to get me 2 of those tractors, with the old HVAC system on it, got the heat and the air. Oh, because I do not want to be sitting on that porch in that rocking chair, seeing my wife down there baling hay, thinking she might be sweating. I do not want to see that. I do not want to see that. We were watching something, it's been several months ago. We were watching one of these RV shows on TV, and I'm talking about RVs. I mean, they're like a palatial estate driving down the road. And I said, you know what? When I win the lottery, I'm going to buy me one of them. She said, when you win the lottery, I'm going with you to pick it out. She said, but you got to buy a ticket first. Listen, if you're buying the lottery, let me encourage you, this has nothing to do with my lesson tonight. If you're buying the lottery, it's nothing more than a tax on poor people and people who can't do math. And you know what? Puts us in a situation that will destroy your life. There's a reason why you have what you have and why you don't have what you have tonight. And the sooner we accept that, the more we're going to be able to laugh about it and smile about it. Even though we drive a 2004 car, thank the Lord it's still running, right? There we go. A Honda, there we go. It's never about what you make, folks. It goes back to that behavior thing. What do we do with it? What do we do with it? You must be a purposeful manager. That's where I'm going to end here tonight. We've got to be a purposeful manager. And if you were to be honest with yourselves tonight, and you're not accountable to me, you're not even accountable to your pastor, you're not accountable to anybody else, but you look at yourself, you're accountable to God. And are we the purposeful managers with the possessions that He's allowed us to have and use? Remember, we don't own anything. He owns it all. And when we step back and realize, do you realize how wealthy you are as a child of God? You've been adopted into the family, and your father owns the cattle on the hill. You know that field of black Angus that I want? He owns it. The red white face, he owns it. And everything else. And he's my father. He's going to take care of me, and he's going to take care of you. Don't care what the president says, whether it's Trump or Biden or anybody else, God is still in control. And the sooner we realize that and live our lives like it should, but we've got to be a purposeful manager. Over the next several weeks, we're going to be talking about some subjects like budgeting. Now make sure you come back, because that typically scares people when I say that. So if it scares you, change that word budget to say spending plan. Okay, a little more palatable. I'm not a politically correct guy, but use that if you want to, all right? Getting out of debt. Anybody ever been in debt? Don't raise your hand, all right? Anybody ever been in debt? How many are still in debt? Let's get out of debt, all right? Because it will weigh you down. Let's prepare for the future, whatever the future may hold. Let's begin to look at some things of what we should be doing and saving and preparing for the future, investing. How do we look at things like insurance and all those? Let's take this whole broad thing, let's break it down, as we become a purposeful manager. I do hope that you'll be back over the next 6 weeks. I hope, or 7 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is, whatever we're supposed to be. I hope you're back. I hope I haven't bored you tonight, but I will be around for a few minutes if you've got any questions. And again, I've tried to be transparent with you tonight. Let's liven our class up as we go. There's not a bad question as we go on. I want to bring you help, okay? I want to bring you help. I want to be able to do that. You can always call me, email me, whatever. You can text me at that same number as well, okay? If you've got a question, I'm here to help you. Pastor?